So these are the names of the Torah portions. So the Torah, is written in 5 books. Each book is marked. There's a space between them in the scroll, but they're not divided. What we know, the way we normally divide biblical texts is by chapters and verses. That's right. It's on the contents page, okay? Chapters and verses were introduced by the Christian community somewhere in the 3rd, 4th century. And you'll notice chapters and verses do not correspond either to the narrative, like sometimes a chapter break will come in the middle of a story, and verses are supposed to be sentences, but they're often not. There's sometimes a half a sentence or 2 sentences. But we use chapters and verses because when Jews began arguing with Christians after the Crusades, they used to have these disputations. We had to know how to find texts in their Bible. So we learned chapters and verses. Jewish families, the Jewish community generally broke up the Chumash. There were 2 systems. One system is the Babylonian system called Parsha, from the Greek word portion, same word, which is a weekly reading. There are 54 of them, so there's enough for one for every week of the year, including a leap year, okay? And then in years that are not leap years, we double them, certain ones up, so that in 1 year you read the whole Torah scroll. You go through the whole Torah. That's an instrument of communal literacy. That instrument of communal literacy functions so that if you're a good shul goer and you come to synagogue for a year, you will know the Torah. The rabbinic tradition added to this that every week we're going to add a section from the biblical prophets. That section was read after the Torah reading. The word for the closing reading is haftarah. Haftarah means the closing reading, because if you heard the prophets being read, you knew that we were about done with the Torah service. So now if you were to go synagogue every week, you would read a section of Torah and a section from prophets, and you would really be literate. And the rabbis added a third. There was a section from the section called, a selection from the section called writings, the end of the Torah, usually Psalms, so that every week had a Torah portion, a haftarah, prophetic portion, a section from the writings from Psalms, and if you went to synagogue every week, you'd know the Bible. Okay? That was the Babylonian system that became part of the Jewish community that we do now. The Palestinian, or the Israel-based system, divided the Torah into 154 sections. Each one was called a sidra. Okay? And that way it took you 3 years to read it. You would do the same cycle of reading, but over the course of 3 years, not over the course of a year. Okay? We adopted the Babylonian system because we adopted the Babylonian Talmud. So we have a weekly Torah reading. Does that make some sense? Yeah. Okay, good. Now, the disadvantage of that is that it gives equal weight to some of the boring sections of Leviticus than it does to some of the very exciting sections in Genesis and Deuteronomy, and that becomes a bit of a problem. And we'll talk about that at another time. But now if you look down at the table of contents, what you have here are the names of the weekly Torah portions. Everybody see that? Yes. Now watch what the rabbis did. It's very clever when they divided this up into weekly Torah portions. We have 4 Torah portions that tell the story of the enslavement and exodus from Egypt, the Passover story. That's Shemot, Va'era, Bo, and Beshalach. Okay? Beshalach is the one where we cross the Red Sea. And that's the closing of the Pesach story. That's when you sing Dayenu and you eat dinner. Okay? Shemot, Va'era, Bo, Beshalach tell the story of God's liberation of the people of Israel from Egypt. Got it so far? Then 2 Torah portions tell the story of what happened to us when we stood at Mount Sinai, what God taught us at Mount Sinai. That's Yitro and Mishpatim. Yitro is the 10 Commandments, and Mishpatim is all the other laws. Then there are 4 Torah portions at the end of the book of Shemot, the end of the book of Exodus, that tell the story of the construction of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was that shrine that the Israelites created in the desert so that they could continue the Sinai experience wherever they went. It's a portable mountain. Because if you're going to meet God on a mountain, you don't want to have to schlep back to that mountain. Come on. You don't want to make room and got some folks who need a place to sit. All right? Everybody scooch over and says, come on. Come sit. These are good-smelling people. You'll like sitting next to them. I guarantee you. All right. You don't want to have to go back to the mountain every time you want to talk to God. What you do is you bring the mountain with you. It's an ingenious idea. By the way, it's an ingenious idea that didn't catch on. And I'll prove it to you. Anyone been to Europe? Anyone gone visit churches in Europe? Right? Why do they build churches in places in Europe? Because they have something holy happen there, right? So if a saint was martyred there, they build a cathedral, right? If there was a great decision made by the church, they build a cathedral. What about if you live in a town where nothing ever happened? Like Reseda, or Sherman Oaks, or Northridge, or Valley Village, or Encino for that. Well, we had Rabbi Shulwai, so this is if you live in Thousand Oaks and you want to, what do? So in the basement of a church, they would always have a chamber called a reliquary. Anyone ever seen a reliquary? Good. It's the spookiest thing. You go in the reliquary, and they have there this beautiful piece of crystal surrounded by diamonds and emeralds and gold, and in that piece of crystal is a sliver. And they say, this is a sliver from the cross. This is a sliver from the original cross. Now, if you took all of the slivers from all of the churches in Europe, not only could you build a cross, you could probably build the Vatican. That's how many. Because there was a big industry in the early days of the church of selling, hey, I got something for you. Don't tell nobody, but a Rolex watch? A Rolex watch? Real diamond rings? A piece of the cross? That's what happened. And pilgrims would come back from the Holy Land with, and they would, because we have a piece of the cross, we can build a church around it, right? Sometimes it wasn't a piece of the cross. It was literally a piece of a saint. Right? There's a church, yes, a bone. Right. So like Saint Anne's finger. I was at a church in Venice, and they have Saint Anne's Nebuch. I don't know if Saint Anne was finished with it before they took it from her. The best example is Venice. Anyone been to Venice? It's a magical place. It's really magical, right? And the most beautiful thing in Venice is San Marco's Cathedral, right? St. Mark's Cathedral, right? So why is St. Mark's Cathedral there? Because guess who's buried in the basement?
His toenails.
No, the whole guy. He's there. No, but it's a better story. St. Mark's didn't die in Venice. He died, he was buried in Constantinople, in Istanbul. So what the Venetians did is they went and conquered Istanbul, slaughtered all of the people, stole the coffin of St. Mark's, brought it back, buried him there, and built a cathedral over it. This is serious religion. So this idea that you have to have something, an object that is filled with holiness. We have some books. Anton, por favor. Steve, want to do me a favor? Can you help this young lady with some of the books here? Thanks, guys. So this idea that in order to come close to God, you have to have a physical object which in some way is associated with the presence, the immanence of divinity in the world, is the essence of the cathedral, of the church tradition in Europe, right? The Jews of the Bible had a very different idea. The Israelites had a very different idea. The mountain is holy, but the mountain is not holy because it's the holy mountain. The mountain is holy because God came down on the mountain. As soon as God was finished with the mountain, it went back to being a schlepper mountain again. There's nothing holy about that mountain. And I can prove that to you too, because in 1979, Menachem Begin gave the Sinai Peninsula back to the Egyptians. Nobody went and protested, but Mount Sinai's there. You didn't see protest. They were angry about Yamit, which was a big city that they'd built on the coast, and they had to abandon it to the Egyptians. But nobody was angry about. In fact, not only did they not protest, nobody really knows which mountain in the Sinai Peninsula is Mount Sinai. If you go there, and I did, and they take you to Jabal Musa, which is a mountain that the Bedouins think is Mount Sinai, and on the top of Jabal Musa is St. Catherine's Cathedral, right? Santa Catalina. That's what the island's named for. But she's buried on top of Jabal Musa, right? Until people from California steal her and bring her over to Catalina Island, But And so did you do this did anyone go to Israel and get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and climb Mount Sinai? You know what I'm talking about? You don't know what I'm talking about? In the old days, before we gave it. But nobody protested because the mountain's not holy. What's holy is the presence of God within it. So the Bible gives you this idea. Build a portable mountain. Build a shrine. It's called a tabernacle in English. I never knew what that word meant. It sounds like a dermatological condition. Doesn't it sound like a bad case of tabernacles, You go to the dermatologist and he'll cure your tabernacles for you. Anyway, a tabernacle, it's a shrine. It's a place to worship God. It's a place where God presumably lives in the world. So we're going to build one. And we're going to carry God with us through the world, wherever we go. So there are 4 Torah portions which tell that story, right? Truma and Tissa tell the story of God's instructions to Moshe. This is how I want it built. Gather good stuff from the Israelites, gather their treasures, and build it this way. Titzavet talks about the priestly garments. And then the last 2 Torah portions, Vayakel and Pikudei, tell you that Moses did it exactly as God said it. Vayakel and Pikudei, the last 2 Torah portions, are actually a Xerox copy of Truma and Titzavet, like word for word. Truma and Titzavet says, God said, build it this way. And Vayakel Pikudei says, and Moses built it that way. And Truma begins with the request from the Israelites, please give us your treasures. And Pikudei at the end is the accountant's audit. Here's what he used. X numbers of gold, a lot of silver, a lot of schmutz, all kinds of stuff. And that's how so you have here 4 Torah portions which are concerned with the creation of the first religious institution. The first man-made, artificial religious institution, a bottle for containing the presence of God in the world. And 4 Torah portions, that's a lot of Torah, because the idea that you could carry God with you in the world was that important to the Torah. So what we end up with now is perfect symmetry. This is the Parthenon, perfectly symmetrical. 4 Torah portions tell you the story of the Exodus from Egypt, God's entering our history. 2 Torah portions tell you the revelation at Mount Sinai, God's instructions for a holy life. 4 Torah portions tell you how we built the Mishkan, a dwelling place in the world for God. 10 Torah portions, perfectly symmetrical, 4, 2, 4. It's beautiful. Except for one thing. Except for one little problem. There's an 11th Parsha. What do you mean there's an 11th Parsha? 10 is symmetrical, 10 is even, 10 is beautiful. Just look at any piece of Greek architecture. Look at any piece of Greek statuary, right? You ever, all those beautiful Greek statues in the museum, right? They're all beautiful. It wasn't one fat person in Greece. Right? They're all gorgeous, beautiful. Even the women have muscles on their muscles. They have 6-pack abs. They got thighs like steel. Just, Schwarzenegger when he was a man. I mean, just beautiful, just beautiful. That's the Greek ideal. Jews, we have this problem. You know what we are the problem. Everyone who has an ideal about how the world should be set up, we're always the ones going, yeah, but we're not like that. Yeah. Right? Jews, like you serve a meal and everyone eats with joy except for the Jew who says, I'll have the veggie plate. I can't eat this stuff, right? You have a Christmas pageant. How many of you don't raise your hands, went to public school and we all had to learn the Christmas songs, right? And then your mother wrote a note to the teacher saying there's agenda. The teacher went, all right, we'll learn the dreidel song. We're always the exception. So what happens is there's an 11th Torah portion smashed into this beautiful symmetry, which destroys the symmetry. Which is to say, anytime you think that you can capture human experience in a perfect square box, in a nice, clean, neat, conceptual scheme, there's always something that falls outside the lines. There's always an exception. We Jews have been the exception for all of human history. That's one of the reasons they hate us so damn much. Because we're the exception. We're the outsider. We're the color outside the box kid. There's the exception. And this Torah portion, it's called Ki Tissa. It's on 523. You see that? That's today's Torah portion. Today is, and it's such an interesting story. Because you see where it is, but don't turn the page just quite yet. Look where it is. It's jammed in the middle of the narrative of the construction of the Mishkan. You got to know that. Right in the middle of the story of the creation of this beautiful portable cathedral, a place for God in the world, a place, a container for divine perfection in the world, bam, there's this story. Smashed in there, completely out of place. Completely out of place, except that's exactly where it belongs, because it's going to say, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Let's talk about human institutions and this impulse to create perfect containers for imperfect people. 523. Everybody turn to 523. Right? Is there anybody here who can buy clothes off the rack without alterations? I just want to tell you that I hate you. Never in my life. Never in my life. And I admire that. I have a friend. He walks in, he buys a pair of pants, he puts them on, they look great. I said, how is that possible? Never. Take him to the tailor. Tailor goes, oh my God. We're going to fit you into that? All right, ready? So it begins with a census. That's not the important part. And then we get to on chapter 31, which is on 527, we anoint Bezalel, who is going to be the artisan to craft. You can say that. It's not bad, but let's take a look at that quickly. 527. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, see, I've singled out by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I've endowed him with divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft to make designs for the work in gold, silver, and copper. He's the first artisan. He's the great Jewish artisan. So he's going to create the Mishkan. You need an artisan. And it's interesting that it's not Moses who does it, and it's not Aaron who does it, because the artist's role is different than the prophet or the priest. He has skill, he has vision, and he has certain kinds of creativity that don't belong to the prophet and the priest. The artist is going to have a very peculiar role in religion. The artist can serve religion, but at some point the artist always undermines religion because artists can't be controlled. Artists can't be controlled. So artists have an ambivalent relationship with religion. Really ambivalent relationship. They become subversive to religion. That's Bezalel. Now turn the page. Here's the story I want to get to. On page 529. So you can tell it's one of my favorite stories because it's a story that makes a mess out of everything. So in the middle of this beauty, of this beautiful symmetry, this beautiful design of the Mishkan, the generosity of the people of Israel, the talent, the artistic talent of Bezalel. You get this moment, oh, it's going to work, it's going to work. Not so fast. Ready? When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain. Don't turn the page yet. Wait a minute. He's been down the mountain telling us how to build the Mishkan. So what happens to this story? This story didn't happen here. When did it happen chronologically? Back in Yitro, back when he was up on the mountain. Remember what happened? God comes down the mountain and speaks to us. What did we say? Holy, we don't want this anymore. Moshe, you go get the commandments. We'll wait for you here. Moshe says, fine. Wait here. I'm back in 40 days. So Moshe climbs the mountain, and we all went back to wait for him. How long was he up on the mountain? Maybe. Long enough. Long enough for us to get nervous. Long enough. First of all, he's an old guy, with apologies, right? But he's 80-something years old. He's 82 years old, okay? Right? That's young, right. That God bless you. That's God bless. If you said he's young, that's all I want. That was beautiful. Right? He's 82 years old. The mountain is quaking. The mountain is on fire. The mountain is shaking, right? And he's climbing up this mountain, and he's wearing sandals. So he goes up into the clouds, and he disappears. And we waited for him. We waited, and he didn't come back. He didn't come back. So what would you have a right to conclude? What do you conclude? He got hit by a boulder or something, very vase. Maybe God ate him, or killed him. Or maybe better than that, we'll come to this in a minute. This is Maimonides' great problem. If going up the mountain means I'm going to stand face to face with God, which is the epitome of the religious quest, maybe he got to the top of the mountain and decided not to come back. After all, if you can have nirvana, why would you want Northridge? If you can stand with God, if you can be with the divinity, if you can own the truth, if you can have the serenity of religious fulfillment, why come back to Encino, where it's noisy, where people kvetch? Nobody kvetches on the mountain. On the mountain, it's just him and God. God whispers truths in his ear. He asks God's questions. They sit, they play chess, and it's machaya. Right? Why do you want to come down to a world that says we don't like the food, and we don't like the water, and we don't... Ugh! And he's 82. It's time to retire anyway. Instead of Leisure Village, it's God Mountain. Fountain View, World View. That's what it should be. So we don't know why, but he ain't coming back. Turn the page. The people gathered against Aaron and said to him, now, the Hebrew is Al Aharon. That's not the way you would say it. You would say El Aharon. They came to Aaron. You don't say Al Aharon, except if you're trying to convey, Arnie, what? On top of, right. Which conveys what? They forced him. Al Aharon, and they said to him, come, make us a god who shall go before us, for that man Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him.
But why 40 days?
Why 40 days? Because it's a long time.
A long time?
That's a long time. The Bible number 40 means a lot. Right? When it rains for Noah, how long does it rain? 40 days and 40 nights, right? Right? How long were we slaves in Egypt? 400 years. How long did it take to cross the desert? 40 years. 40 means a lot. Because it's 4 times 10. 4 is the magic number because it's 2 squared, and 10 is 10 is the other magic number. 4 times 10 means a lot. You get it? 10 plagues, 10 commandments, 10 words of creation. It means a lot. 40 is just a magical number that means a lot, more than you can wait for. A lot.
But why God did not send him earlier?
Yeah, why not? Why doesn't he call? Send a letter, a postcard. Just send one down. It's every airplane. Doing fine, be home soon. A text to Aaron, right? Right? Check if I turned off the stove in my tent. Something. Why doesn't he text? Come on, for God's sakes. Moshe must have pretty good cell phone reception from up there.
Biblical time is not the time that we know today.
It's not. See, what I'm suggesting to you is, I'm having fun with you, but that's okay. What I'm suggesting is it's not important. The number is an arbitrary number. It's a symbolic number. It just means a lot. Well, if it was 20 days or 8 days or 10 days, it's irrelevant. The fact is, he was there long enough for the people to say, he's not coming back.
They got nervous.
How long would that take? Look, think about how long something takes, right? If a traffic light is more than 30 seconds, I get uchi. Right? I don't know how, I get antsy. Don't you get antsy sometimes if you're, if I can't get I read the newspaper on my iPad in the morning. If it takes more than 3 seconds to get me the Washington Post, I'm upset. Right? How long is long? Long enough so that you lose patience, right? Right? Some people, some people are in, how long before you say, all right, this isn't going to work? That's what's happening. It's long enough. But before we get to it's not a matter of the length of time. What's their problem? What's their problem? He's gone. So what? They didn't like him anyway. What do you need a leader for? So someone else will be the leader. Let Aaron be the leader. Aaron, you lead us to the promised land. You know how to get there. Go.
They don't believe.
They don't believe what?
Full faith.
Come on, think about what this people are. What have they been? They're all slaves. First of all, slaves are visual. There's always there's somebody watching you, and you're watching somebody. They're watching you all the time. Number two, there's always somebody telling you what to do. Slavery is a horrible thing, but one of its virtues is you always know exactly what you need to be doing. Right? Exactly what you need to be doing. This is a people used to be told what to do. Suddenly they find themselves free. Freedom is very frightening. Freedom is frightening. Number one, you have to make choices, and not only do you have to make choices, you have to be responsible for your choices. If you're a slave, you don't have to be responsible for anything. They'll tell me what to do, and I'll do it. If I don't do it, they'll whack me. But if I do it, it's not my fault. I just did what he told me to do. Suddenly, it's freedom, and I have to make choices. You want to watch a kid go crazy? Take a small child into a Baskin-Robbins store. Say, go ahead, pick out a couple flavors. There's a reason why vanilla is the most popular flavor in America. There's a reason why vanilla, because people can't make choices. They don't want to make choices. Vanilla, I'm safe.
Just vanilla and chocolate.
Vanilla is listen, Howard Johnson's had it right? Howard Johnson said, you can have anything you want as long as it's chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. Right? Some of you know who Howard Johnson's is, right? American fascists. But this idea that I give you choices in and you can't handle the choices, you can't handle the freedom. Erich Fromm, the great social theorist, wrote a very important book about the escape from freedom, about this deep inner need to be told what to do. It's too frightening to make choices, and it's too frightening to take responsibility for my choices, so I wait for somebody to tell me what to do. And this people can't live with the freedom. They can't live with that kind of freedom. I need someone to tell me what to do. I want a God who will go before me. That's the language, right? I want a God who will go before me and organize my life for me. And not just organize my life for me, I want one more thing. You know what I want? I want a warranty. You buy a television set, you buy a computer, you buy a car, you get a warranty. It says, anything go wrong, not your fault, we'll pay for it. It's a very wonderful thing. It's only one small problem. When you have a child, it doesn't come with a warranty. I looked. I asked the doctor. I said, I'll take him home. Where's the owner's guide and where's the warranty? The doctor said, very funny. Here's your kid. Call me in 30 years. There's no owner's guide. You take the child home. You put him in the bassinet in the bedroom and you realize, I have no idea what to do with this thing. I love him, feed him, what? I gave him ice cream the first day. Nina got very upset. He turned out okay. He's a software engineer in San Francisco. He's healthy. He's fine. Right? Come on. And there's no warranty. Wouldn't it be great to have a warranty? We have a nursery school here. Can I give you a little sermon? We have a nursery school here. You want to know how many daddies come in? And I gave up at one point. I wrote out a warranty. Your child will get into, and I checked the box, Ivy League school, UC school, right? Harvard Medical School. Just check the box. I'll sign it. Now, you feel better? Now, give me your 2-year-old. How do I know? How do I know this is... You don't. It's really scary raising a kid because there's no warranty. What do they want? Give me a God who will go before me and guarantee that I don't have to deal with the uncertainty of life. I want a warranty on life. I want a warranty on life. Guaranteed you'll be happy. Guaranteed you'll be satisfied or your money back. Just bring the child back in the original packaging and we'll give you your money back. I'm pointing at you because you're here. If you sit in the first row, you get picked up. I love you, but Okay, yes, Douglas.
These people encountered God a few weeks ago.
Yes, just a few weeks ago, or actually moments ago.
It's now, you can now measure or quantify
Yeah.
the shelf life of what contact with God has.
Yeah, well, the shelf life, the half-life of a miracle. I don't know if that's going to work. If that gets cold in here, if it gets cold in here, I'm sure you'll let me know.
So you're now realizing that miracles have a very limited half.
Yeah, not just miracles, though. Because that's, remember I told you that there's this voice in the Bible which says don't expect apocalyptic moments to change people. They change people. People don't change that way. This is that voice again. This is the voice that's going to dominate the book of Numbers, which is really the locus classicus of this voice. This is that voice that dominates sections of Exodus. This is the voice that says, listen, let's be careful about this. But there's another layer to it, so hang on. Ready? So we're on page 530. Yes, please.
So
Marcia.
are you waiting for instructions as to how to build the tabernacle? Is that the whole?
Yeah, well, we're waiting for instructions on how to live.
Bringing those instructions?
Not just the tabernacle. We're waiting for instructions on how to live life. Right? We heard God say, I have a plan for you. Right? We said, we don't want to know. Send him. He went up the mountain to find out. We're waiting. He's gone. We realize, and you can see this visually. You're standing there in the desert. This is vast expanse of empty land. Which way do I go? What do I do? I don't know how to be a free person. I'm used to waking up in the morning with orders. I'm used to going to bed at night being told what I got to do tomorrow. I'm not used to waking up in the morning and not having anything to do. That's why God gave us television. Because people have hours and hours and hours to fill and no notion what to do with them. So you put an appliance in your house which does to time what your garbage disposal does to trash. It's you turn on the TV and 3 hours later you're okay. Now I know what to do. It's dinner time. Right? And I'm serious. What do I do? How do I spend my life? How do I live? What do I do? And not just that, but I want a warranty that it's going to work out well. I want certainty. I want a God who will go before me and show me how to live. They come to Aaron. Now, what should Aaron say? He's coming. That's my brother. Don't talk. It's not that man Moses. That's my brother. He's coming down. Let's trust him. Let's wait for God. God will not fail us. God took us out of Egypt not to die in the wilderness, but to get to the promised land. There's all kinds of things he could say. Either he was forced, which is one way of reading the story. They gathered al Aharon. He was compelled. Or, you know, Moses is my little brother. How come he gets to be the leader? How long do you play second fiddle to your little brother? You know? That's just, so what happens? What does Aaron say? Look at verse 2. Aaron says, take off the gold rings that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me. Right. Now, first of all, if you have a son who has an earring, don't worry. It's old tradition here. You see that? Right? But now it's getting cold. I'm sorry. So what does he say to them? And there's another tradition that says he never thought they'd do it. He never thought that Jewish women would part with their jewelry. He thought that it's you know, they would say, oh, well, if that's the price of religion, we'll keep waiting, you know. Screw it. No! For the last time in Jewish history, they became generous. And the people took off their gold rings. No, that's the point. That's the point. You hold on to your jewelry because that's your defense against idolatry, you see. All the people took off their gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And ears, of course, is ironic because they just heard God, right? Okay? So that he took from them and cast it in a mold and made a molten calf. Okay? So what you do is you build a frame out of wood and then you hammer sheets of gold onto it, gold leaf. Okay? Now, I want you to watch the next two statements. I want you to see what Aaron says and what the people say. And I want you to contrast the two. Okay? That's our question for today. And they exclaimed, this is the people now, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And here's what Aaron says. When Aaron saw this, when he saw the calf that he built an altar before it, and Aaron announced, tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord, of Adonai. All right, what's the difference between what Aaron says and the people say? They're looking at the same physical object, but they see something very different. What does Aaron see in this physical object, and what does Moses see in this physical object? And why? It's the same object. It's the calf. He built a calf. He built a calf. Now, he built the Mizbeach afterwards, but he built the calf. Okay, and he's looking at the calf. And he says, tomorrow is the day of the Lord, and the people say, this is your God. What's the difference between those two statements? And now it's getting cold. All right, so I get it. It's the story of my life. Someone is going to make me a Hanukkah present and buy me a thermostat that works. What's the difference between the two statements? Between what the people see and what Aaron sees? What's the difference, Mark?
Well, Aaron sees Adonai.
He sees Adonai in the calf? No. What does he see? Aaron worships the God of Israel. Aaron worships the God of Moses, right? That God is invisible. You can't touch him. He's not tangible. So what is the calf? What is it for? What is it's a place you can come to worship God. It's a religious institution. Is it holy? No. What is it? It's a place to come and worship God. God is holy, but the calf is a place, okay? Calves were used in Mesopotamian religion. They were understood to be the footstool of the god. So the idea is if you sit here and you put your feet down, that's where the calf... There are these images in Babylon, on the gates of Babylon, that show the god and his feet are on top of a calf. So the calf is... what he's doing, what Aaron is looking at is above the calf. He sees the calf as a place, and above it is God. Does that remind anybody of anything? The Mishkan, in the tabernacle, is going to be an Ark of the Covenant. The same one that Harrison Ford found in the movie. It's a gold box. On top of the gold box is what? There are two images of cherubs. Now, we don't know what this looked like because we have no images of this. But apparently, and their wings almost touch in the middle. And God is called Yoshev Kruvim, the God who dwells on or above those angels. So in a sense, the calf is simply another version of the Mishkan, of the Ark. It's a place, an object, a way, a container to bring divinity into the world. It is not holy. It is an instrument of holiness and a symbol of God. Right? You get that? What do the people see? What do you mean God? What do the people see?
A physical representation of God.
Say that again.
A physical representation of God.
A physical reputation of what?
God.
Not God, the God of Israel, of that power which
Tell them
brought.
what to do.
Right. It's a. They see it as don't do that. Wendela. She's not. She's joining the conversation. If this is yelling, you would not last 5 minutes at my dinner table. I mean, I'll show you yelling. I mean, you know. No, she's fine. It's a physical representation. It's more than a physical representation. I'm going to suggest it's more than that. The object itself is somehow imbued with power. Magic. The object, don't go like this. Listen to me. The object itself is imbued with sanctity. Hang on a second. The object itself is imbued with power. The object itself is an object of reverence. Somehow the object is not just a representation. The object itself has some sort of power. It's revered as it's a fetish, is what it's called. It's revered as having power itself. Why would people think that? Do people ever worship objects in that way? Imbue objects with a sense of sanctity and treat them not as objects, but in some way as somehow cherished objects of holiness in some way?
All the time.
But that's the same thing as the Mishkan.
So that's not the same thing as the Mishkan.
But it is because
No.
the Mishkan is built a particular way.
Yeah.
And very exact.
Okay.
And it itself has power.
No, it doesn't have power. It has power because God shows up on it. But you're right. No, Wendell, you're right. You're not wrong. Listen. That's the point of the story. Why is this story jammed right in the middle of the Mishkan stories? It's a warning. What's it a warning of?
Well, that, the tabernacle itself does become, a new God or a new source of power. It remains a place where, God can worship God.
It's it's brilliant. It's very, very easy to take the symbol of something and start to imagine that the symbol is the thing that you're worshiping. You have a symbol and you have what it represents, right? What it represents is ephemeral, right? The symbol, however, captures it in some sense. But it's just a symbol. It's just a symbol. But sometimes we human beings are apt, are prone, especially when we're frightened, to imbue the symbol with reverence and forget that which it's supposed to refer to. The symbol itself becomes an object of holiness. And we start treating the symbol as if it's an object. We ought to worship the symbol, and we forget that which it's trying to represent. Right? Let me give you the best example, the hardest example. And this is a hard example, so listen carefully. The United States of America, as a country, is it holy? Or are the values for, remember the Pledge of Allegiance, the values for which it stands, of democracy and freedom and the dignity and equality of human beings, are those values holy?
Yes.
Yes. The country is an instrument for the preservation and protection of those values, but the country itself is not holy. It's only holy so long as it protects and value and defends those values. But you can start worshiping the country and forget about the values that it's supposed to stand for, because the country is filled with all of these glimmering, shiny symbols.
You're doing it again, Ed.
No, I'm not. The Torah is trying to tell us something about about what idolatry is. Idolatry is when you forget that the symbol is just a symbol. And you forget what it's supposed to symbolize. And you imbue the symbol itself with a kind of reverence that belongs to that which it symbolizes, but you start worshiping the symbol. Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, said, it's like a hungry man who walks into a restaurant and starts eating the menu. It's the menu. And you're missing the point of the activity. And that's the question, you see? So right in the middle of the narrative about the creation of the first Jewish institution is this remarkable narrative which warns you, be careful about the institutions you create. And be careful about the symbols you create. Because on the one hand, we human beings need symbols. I wear a wedding ring because I need a symbol to remind me that I belong. I have a covenant with somebody in the world. Right? I wear a kippah, it reminds me that I belong. I have a synagogue, which reminds me that I belong. These are all symbols. But on the other hand, we have this nasty habit of turning the symbols themselves into objects of worship and forgetting that which they point to. And forgetting that if the symbol ever becomes an obstacle, if the symbol doesn't lead me to those values, but becomes an obstacle to those values, the symbol now becomes dysfunctional and idolatrous. That's the sin. To worship the country and destroy the values upon which it's based is idolatry. That's the constant ferment and an argument that has to go on. You can't have the values without the container of the country, without the nation. But you have to be always careful that the nation stands for its values. That's the conversation. That's healthy political conversation. That's healthy religious conversation. Sir, I'm coming to that.
I read this section, and God reproaches Aaron, God reproaches Aaron for allowing the Israelites to create the golden calf.
Right. You're reading ahead of us. Smart man.
I thought that Aaron's reply was facile and rather silly.
Yes.
Was he punished for it?
Right. Good question. So let's jump ahead. I want to get to this text in a moment, but I'll answer your question because I respect the question. It's a wonderful question. Was Aaron ever punished for what he did? What happens is, you'll see in a moment, Moses comes down the mountain and there's Aaron. What are you going to say to him? Buddy, you blew it, you know? I once did this with a class of 7th graders. I was teaching, so we did Bible dramas, right? And I had, you play Moses and you play Aaron. And we played this out one after the other, and the Aaron character had all kinds of excuses. They forced me. What was I supposed to do? The kid who won my contest did like this. The Moses character comes down, and he's about to yell at Aaron. And the Aaron character runs up, throws his arm around, and says, "Thank God you're alive! Oh my God, you're alive!" I said, "You win." In Deuteronomy, it's worse, by the way. When the story's retold, and I can find it for you here. When the story's retold in Deuteronomy, Moses now telling it a generation later to the children of these people, Aaron's now long dead, he says to them, Aaron comes down, Aaron came down, and he says, I threw the gold into the fire, and out popped this calf. No, it really says that. Now, was Aaron ever punished for this? Oh, don't be so quick. You're going to think this is really, well, no, that's not the punishment for this. He becomes what? The high priest. First of all, for people like me, that's the punishment, see? You have to work for the Jews for the rest of your life. You have to sit in board meetings, sisterhood meetings, brotherhood meetings. You have to do federation missions to Israel. You have to do AIPAC conventions. That's right. Until you repent your sin, right? That's one. All right. But think about that seriously. Think about that not as a concept. What is a high priest? He is a person who is covered from head to toe in holy vestments and loses himself so that he himself becomes a symbol. Look, Rabbi does the same thing. It's something that I teach my students, right? I mean, we know each other, and you know me. Many of you know me a long time. But there are moments when I stop being Eddie, and I become your rabbi, and I become a symbol of something, of a tradition, of a community. And you need me to do that, right? Right? When you need me to officiate in that sense. Aaron himself becomes a symbol. He becomes a symbol of something. Which, in other words, he becomes the very thing which he violated. And he gets to taste from the inside of the uniform what it's like to be revered instead of the values. He's going to spend the rest of his life saying, no, it's not me you revere. It's the God of Israel and the principles that God has taught you. You see? So a certain way, maybe it's not a punishment, but it certainly is an interesting response. He's a servant, but he becomes the symbol himself. And every time somebody treats him that way, he has to say, no, it's not me, I serve God. It's a very interesting psychology. All right, I know you want to talk, but I want to get to the text. So Ronnie, make it quick, please, and then Arnie.
Okay.
And sure.
Aaron isn't the leader anymore. He has to be subservient to his brother.
Right. He has to be subservient to everybody. He has to be subservient to everybody. The priest, he may be called high priest, but the fact is, what's high priest? He now works for the community. He now works for everybody.
Community service.
Right? Yes, but I mean, the fact is that he now owes allegiance to, he's not his own man anymore. That's the punishment. It's not just his younger brother, it's the whole people. He serves the whole people, right? That's the problem, right? You're a physician. So in the hours that you're in your clinic with a white coat on and a stethoscope around your neck, you are a symbol of health and well-being. But the nice part is at the end of the day, you took off the white coat, you put down the stethoscope, and you became Doreen's husband, right? And our friend Ronnie. That's the good part about being a physician. You only got to do it 12, 15 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, right? And the rest of the time is yours, right? Aaron doesn't stop being the high priest ever. He doesn't get to be himself ever. It's a very interesting, and this happens to people in certain roles, right? Right? Without getting political, one of the things I wonder about is whether Mr. Trump really thinks that at the end of the day at 5 o'clock he can clock out and not be president anymore. No, I'm not kidding. When I read his tweets, I read a man who wakes up in the morning at 5 and says, okay, I'm not on duty yet. I can say what I want. He doesn't understand. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me, and I'm not putting it seems to me that he doesn't understand that those kinds of behaviors don't go. You're president 24 hours a day for 4 years. Right? No, but this is, you see, so the question is, can you stop being the symbol of what you see? Aaron can never stop being the symbol. That's his punishment. Arnie, please.
We continue the same tradition because we have viewed the Torah as being God. God's message. We walk around and we...
Yeah. I told this story the other day to the group that I was teaching. in Rabbi school, they teach us never give a sermon when you're angry. Okay? No, I'm serious. You could hurt people. And there's sometimes I know when I violated that rule. I violated it once, some years ago, many years ago. I was watching somebody carry the Torah around the synagogue, and I watched people reaching for the Torah, and somebody knocked over a child. They were reaching for the Torah, and they were reaching with such passion that they didn't see the kid. They didn't care that there was a child there. They saw the kid. They sort of shoved the kid aside, knocked people up, whoops, and so the Torah comes back to the ark, right? And I said to the people in the congregation, how many of you read Hebrew? Hands go up. I said, good, good, good. I said, how many of you kiss the Torah? Everybody's hand goes up. Good. How many of you read Hebrew? About half the hands go up. How many of you understand Hebrew that you read? Can you translate it? A few hands go up. How many of you could read the Torah in Hebrew? Very few hands go up. I say, if you kiss the Torah and you can't read it, that's called idolatry. It's parchment, it's ink, it's a velvet cover, it's a gold dressing. That's nothing. It's the words, it's the story, it's the teaching, it's the attitude that's contained within those words. What are you kissing? Now, the reason it's the wrong thing to say, you know this because you're Landsman, it's because we need symbols. Those values are too ephemeral to have, they need to be symbolized in the world. So the object, it's perfectly okay to say the object is holy, but it's only holy because of what it tells us, you see? I mean, the same way about the American flag. There's a big debate about whether you can burn an American flag, right? I believe in free speech. I happen to think that you shouldn't be able to burn an American flag. I happen to think that the symbol is necessary to represent what the country stands for, so there should be some reverence for the symbol. I'm not sure I would arrest anybody, put him in jail, right? But I think that the flag does contain us, and I'm an old-fashioned person. I think that the flag means something, right? That flag, under that flag, my ancestors were rescued from Hitler.
The Supreme Court said it was free speech?
What?
The Supreme Court said it was free speech?
No, and I understand that, and I get it, and I don't want to impose on free speech. I do think that symbols, however, need to be revered. I believe in symbols, but I believe that symbols should not be, turned into objects of worship themselves. But I think that symbols are important. I mean, so it's a good debate, by the way. That's actually a really good debate. Whether the value of free speech that the flag stands for should preclude destroying the symbol of that very same value, right? Anyone here ever misplaced their wedding ring? Like you go crazy. Like, how am I going to explain to my wife that I misplaced my wedding ring? She'll hate me, because what does my wedding ring represent? That she loves me. But did you ever lose your wedding ring? God help you. That was your first wife, right? Kidding.
Married twice.
You're married. All right, back in the text. Come back in the text with me. Ready? Right. Tomorrow shall be a festival. Early the next morning, the people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being, and they sat down to eat and drink, and they rose to dance. This little gap here, in the movies, this would go. Meanwhile, on top of the mountain. So what's on top of the mountain? Moses, and he's with? And what's the atmosphere up there? If down below, this is so cinematic, guys, come on. If down below there's this wild, crazy, bacchanalian festival of the calf, what's happening up on top of the mountain? Marsha, it's peace, serenity, right? And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, hurry down, for your people who you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely. Anyone here ever have a child vomit in the back seat of your car? Or do something, and you turn to your spouse and say, your child just messed up your car. You ever have that before? Right? What's that famous joke with the Long Ranger? What do you mean, we Kimosabi? So God says to Moses, your people that you brought out of Egypt. Moses said, hello, what, my people? What? What? I'm good. I told you I'm good with sheep. I'm not good with people. They have quickly turned aside from the way that I enjoined upon them. They've made themselves a molten calf and bowed down to its sacrifice, saying, this is your God, O Israel, brought you out of the land of Egypt. So God witnessed the whole thing and didn't stop them. God witnessed the whole, is telling Moses what's going down on the mountain. In other words, God knows exactly what's happening, but God didn't stop them. Why? It's a test. He's heartbroken. Is it? I mean, it's a betrayal. This is a betrayal. Such a betrayal. I mean, they promised loyalty yesterday. And today, this is a betrayal. Right? The Lord said to Moses, this is a stiff-necked people. Let me be. The Hebrew is hanichali, which means stand back. Let me be, which is a strange phrase. Now, what it is, it's a polite. It's the lawyer who says, if it please the court. Okay? It's a statement of politeness when you're making a statement, usually to someone of more authority. But this is God speaking to Moshe. Let me be, hanichali, stand back as I, which means Moses is going to read something into that. Watch what he reads into that in a moment. Let me be that my anger may blaze forth against them, and I'll destroy them and make of you a great nation. What was Moses' problem?
He stuttered.
Yeah, but no, that wasn't the problem. Yeah, so every time he faces a problem, what does he do? Bam! Right? He faces a slave master who's taking it out on a slave. What does Moses do? Does he order the guy to stop, to stand down? No, he smacks the guy and kills him, right? He's going to have a rock, and God says, talk to the rock. What's Moshe going to do? Whap! Moshe has a problem. When you're in nursery school, they teach you a fundamental rule of human interaction. Don't use your words, don't use your fists. Moshe never went to a Jewish nursery school. Of this I'm confident. Wait.
But he couldn't.
But God has the same problem. God, especially in this story, has the same problem as Moshe. What is God's problem? His first response is, I'm going to kill them all, and I'll make you the new patriarch.
But he does that a lot.
He does that a lot, right? Yeah. God has a problem, right? He uses his fists before he uses his words. So what? Anger management for the Lord, right? But it's more than that. What's God's other problem? This is a stiff-necked people. What is he expecting? What does God expect? What does God expect? Yeah. I brought them out of Egypt. I brought them to Sinai. I showed them myself. I taught them the truth. Now they should be perfect.
But they're still slaves.
They're still children. They're still slaves. He doesn't understand how human... The God of this story is that part of us which is idealistic. This is the God of this story is the idealist. What does the idealist say? Right? I'll free you, and then the society will be free. And the idealist doesn't understand that even if you change the conditions of people's existence, people are still not finished. It takes a long time to create a human soul. Souls are not instant. And it's not a question of the conditions of your existence. It has to grow from the inside, and that takes a long time. I had a kid in summer camp. I was a summer camp director for 4 long years. And I had a kid who got in trouble, and I pulled up I remember the kid's name, but I won't say it because it's on tape. But I know you're there, right? And I pulled up his file. He got in trouble. They sent him to the director's office. It was big trouble. And I pulled up his file, and I said, oh my God, you live in Honolulu. He said, yeah, I live in Honolulu. I said, says your father owns a chain of Baskin-Robbins ice cream stores. He says, yeah, my dad owns Baskin-Robbins in Hawaii. I say, what do you have to be upset about? like, you don't deserve to be bad. You live in paradise and have all the Jamocha almond fudge you can eat. Get out of my office. You don't deserve to be naughty. You change the conditions of a human being's existence. You don't change his soul yet. That takes a long time. Right? Here too, I want to put in a plug for the founding fathers of the American Republic. They understood how screwed up people can be. So they created a system of government and social interaction that took into account the fact that even in freedom people can act like slaves. That even in freedom people can act without regard to the other. God doesn't get this yet because God's such an idealist. He's a revolutionary. Change the conditions. They should be changed by now. What's wrong with them? And he gets angry, right? Lenin got angry. Stalin got angry. Mao got angry. Idealists, when they get power, are really dangerous because they want to do this. Destroy them because they don't fit in the box. They don't fit in my box. How come you're not behaving the way you're supposed to? And Moshe, who now gets these people, right? It's not been long, but he gets them up. Now Moshe calms God down. He says, now watch what he says. Tell me which argument wins the day. Because there's three of them here, right? Number one, Moshe implored the Lord, saying, let not your anger blaze against your people who you delivered out of Egypt. You get that click? Yeah? Your people you delivered out of Egypt with great power. Let not the Egyptians say it was with evil intent he delivered them to kill them off in the desert. In other words, what? It's an old Jewish argument. What will the Goyim say? They're watching us. What are the Goyim going to say, right? Turn your blazing anger, announce your plan. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember the old days. This people's not irredeemable. You know that they have something inside of them which is redeemable. Moshe gives him all these arguments. And then what does God say? Look at verse 14. God says, that's exactly right. God says, okay, all right, fine, you win. This isn't as confrontational as Abraham calling out God for Sodom and Gomorrah, but close. What does Moshe say? You're better than this, God. Moshe is teaching God how to be God. Moshe is teaching God how to be God.
How does he know
How does he know what?
what God should
Because Moshe has a deep inner sense of conscience, and he knows what the moral response. He's also a father. If you've been a father or a mother, and you've had kids, and sometimes kids misbehave, and you say, "I'm going to kill the little bastard," right? I'm going to send him off to military school, right? I'm going to lock you out of the house, not tell you we moved. Every parent says that to themselves, right? But you calm down and you say, no, I can't do that. Moshe has kids. Moshe knows what it's like to have kids. It's not, but you see, that's the point. So Moshe teaches God how to be God. That's what's so wonderful about the Torah. This is this conversation between us, right? And what is Moshe? Moshe, if God is the voice of the idealist who says, if it's not perfect, it's not going to be at all. That's the idealist voice, right? Moshe is the voice of the conservative who says, we can change the world, but it's going to take a very long journey to do so. That's Moshe's idea. Yeah.
Hasn't God had these been encountered with this situation before?
Yeah, lots of times, but he still doesn't learn. because idealists are really they're stubborn. Number one, they're stubborn, and number two, and Brian, you're about to discover this. So let me teach. Yes, let me teach you this because your father's going to teach it to you as well. You're going to love your child so much. And you're going to want the best for your child. And when your child disappoints you, I said, when your child disappoints you, and does something that's so different than the image of the child that you have in your heart, and you're going to be so angry at that child. And that's going to happen again and again. A good father is not the father who never gets angry. A good father is the father that says, wait a minute. That's my kid. He'll be okay. I have to give him time. Right? And you calm down. And you take a walk. Right? And you think twice. And you take a breath. And you let the kid grow. If the Moshe voice wasn't part of parenthood, none of us would have survived childhood, right? If fathers were like God in the Bible, none of us would have gotten out of childhood alive. But you do that because it's always the child is going to contravene what you want for the child. You know what's best, right? What do you mean you didn't do your homework again? You know, and you're going to want to just scream at the kid, and you got to take a breath and say, okay, now why didn't he do his homework? How can I help him? And there's a second response, which is the Moshe response. You're going to see that this is the dynamic of being a parent, and it's out of love. I love the kid. I want him to be successful, right? I want him to go to Harvard, right? Right? In the worst way, and that literally in the worst way. Wait 1 second, okay? I want to finish this real quick because I got to go, right? So Moshe comes down the mountain. And he comes to, and Joshua is waiting for him halfway up, and Joshua says it sounds like war, and Moshe says, no, it sounds like Mardi Gras. That's in here someplace, right? And look at verse 19 on 5:33. As soon as Moshe near the camp saw the calf and the dancing, he became enraged. Now they switch roles, right? And he hurled the tablets from his hand. Vayishlech, right? Vayishlech, he hurls them. Why did he, he didn't drop them, he threw them. Why? And is that the right thing to do? And is that sinful? Okay? And I want to finish here because I got to go do a service next door, but I want you to consider the following problem. Here's the problem. If they worshiped a calf, and he walks down with these tablets inscribed with God's signature on them, what are they going to do? They're going to worship the tablets. Now, what a great symbol for idolatry. You don't read the tablet that says you'll have no other gods before me. You don't internalize the ethic of the tablet that says, take my name not in vain. Instead, you worship the object itself, violating the very words on it. Think of that as an image of idolatry, right? So he thinks to himself, it's not in rage. I don't think it's rage. I disagree with the Torah's writer. It was caution. This people's not ready for this yet. This is going to take us some time. And we're going to need some intermediate steps before we're ready to have such a visible symbol of divinity within us, because we're so ready to worship whatever symbol is right in front of us and forget what it is the symbol's trying to impart. Right in the middle of the 10, my beautiful Parthenon of symmetry, comes this nasty story which messes up the whole narrative of perfect faith, perfect redemption, perfect love. You get this itchy, nasty, questioning, dissenting, arguing story of a calf which says, be careful. Be careful. Human beings are much more complicated than that. Change the world. Do it. But just know the human material out of which you're working. Have a good Shabbos. We'll see you next week. Take care.